Hello, everybody. Let me know if you could hear me, please. Welcome. I hope a lot of people are going to come in here. So I'm just waiting to see. Please let me know if you guys can hear me, and we'll get started. All right, James Parker, what's going on? Can't type. Roro, can you hear me? Please let me know. All right, cool. All right, guys. So welcome to another episode of New York City Crime Spot Live. As I told you guys earlier in the week, Ross Brodar was going to be joining, and he's waiting right back behind stage there. He is the artist and filmmaker behind the film The Lynchpin of Bensonhurst. And what I'm going to do right now for you, for those of you who haven't seen the trailer, haven't seen the film, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the trailer, and then I'm going to invite Ross in. So let's add this to the stream. You guys enjoy watching this.
I can't escape, and you can't. Nobody can escape their past. And my past was just real violence. I mean, we're talking about killing. My family, meaning the Gambino family, and they were always criminals. They were always mafia. It's the weapon of choice. My palette knife. I switched from a 45 to a palette knife. It's okay to blow somebody up in a car, but it's not all right to sing. It got to a point where I was so depressed over that, I joined the Army. How many chances you got to actually go to war? Scariest thing ever was Hill A75, period. After that, there was no fear. You know, when I decided to come back to New York, I had no intentions of coming back to New York and becoming a criminal. It's okay for me to kill Vietnamese for $278 a month, but it's not okay for me to kill people that are trying to kill me back here in the States, where I can make some real money.
Let me tell you something. He blew up a guy on Bath Avenue with a percussion grenade. Blew him right across the street.
I was the overseer of a crew.
Absolutely the most dangerous crew in the world.
The type of killers that dismembered bodies and made them disappear.
You know, they did hundreds and hundreds of murders.
I mean, when I got arrested, when I came back, the first night, there was an attorney there. He says, "We can get you out by tomorrow." I said, "No, I'll stay right here." Because I knew as soon as I got out, I'd get popped. I mean, I was ready to go away and do my time. And you know, what a lot of people don't realize, like, you might have killed people, but on the other hand, what they don't realize is that, you know, those people were looking to kill you too. That was the business. That's the life we chose.
Ross Brodar, how you doing?
Good, man. Thanks.
Sorry, I kind of zoomed you in there pretty quick.
That's all right.
All right, everybody. This is Ross Brodar. You probably saw my channel about, I don't know, over a year ago, I think we talked. But we did the interview talking about the film, The Lynchpin of Bensonhurst. But I thought it would be a cool idea to have Ross on live. You guys can ask questions, and I think it's going to be a good time. Ross, so if you could tell us just a little bit about yourself before, you know, outside the film, just a little bit about you.
Well, I mean, you know, for years, I was an artist, you know, pretty much working on making art, paintings. I was doing some acting, and I was working on some films. So when I met Dominic, you know, we actually met through the art scene in downtown Manhattan. And that's kind of how we first, you know, came together. You know, ever since, I work in the film business. I'm actually a location manager. That's what I do these days. I make films in New York and manage locations, and I act in them. And of course, I produced and directed this film with my partner, Billy Sharp.
Right. So you and Billy Sharp. And of course, we're talking about the film, The Lynchpin of Bensonhurst, the story of this guy's life, the life and times of Dominic Montiglio. So as you sit now in history, you've been, you know, unfortunately, Dom passed in 2021. So after all that, now, when people ask you to describe Dominic or say, like, who was he? Why was he important in this story of the mob? How would you describe Dominic? How would you describe his position in that life? What exactly was Dominic doing?
I mean, Dominic was born into a family of, mobsters and gangsters, criminals, generationally. That's how he grew up. That's kind of where he came from and what he knew from his family to the neighborhood he lived in. That's what people were doing. So it was kind of a natural for Dom. But Dom was, he's just kind of a complex, fascinating guy because he, on one hand, had this part of his personality that was, a very creative person. He was a musician, an artist, a free thinker, really, funny guy that could kind of roll with anybody. And then on the other hand, he had a part of him that, he was a killer, and he was adept at being able to, handle extreme situations. From being a soldier in Vietnam and doing what he did out there, where he was a decorated, war hero, basically, to coming back and hooking up with his uncle in the streets of Brooklyn and, taking his role. Look, if Nino had treated Dominic right, Dom could have been, a made guy that who knows what he would have done within that life. But unfortunately, he was put under the wing of Nino, and with Nino never really letting him kind of fly and trying to keep him, down. Dominic was just the type of guy that, there was too much out there, and he had to go get it himself if he wasn't going to be allowed to sort of take his rightful place at the table,
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking before this, I spoke to you about, I went to see Pete LaFroche, and a lot of you guys here now probably saw the clip, and me and Ross, what Ross just said is kind of what Peter the Pick LaFroche, a DeMeo crew guy, said, that he didn't personally like Dom, but he saw that, Nino didn't really take care of him. These guys were driving fancy cars, had a lot of women, had expensive clothes, jewelry, whatever it may be. And I guess Nino really didn't treat Dom fairly or look at him as someone that would, take that next step up and really excel in that lifestyle. Did you think he looked down on Dominic for some reason?
No, I think that, he wanted to use Dominic for what was good for him,
Okay.
and I think the dynamic was, if he had let Dom take a position, he might not have been able to control him the same way. I mean, obviously, Dom went and did what he wanted to do anyway. He had his own little crew on the side. He was, getting involved in all kinds of, activities with some people that were involved in the DeMeo crew, outside of the crew. So, Dom was one of those guys. I mean, you just can't. He wasn't controllable. It was a dichotomy because he was a soldier. So I think Dom did well with like a mission and orders, but at the same time, if you try to play Dom, he always would quote Machiavelli. Like Dom was a thinker, and he would. You wanted to play him, he would play you, and that's what happened with Nino. Like Nino thought he was slick and had Dom in a position, but all the while Dom was doing what Dom wanted to do, and Dom had to do to be who he wanted to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's got to be weird to play, because obviously a lot of people know about the DeMeo crew, but it's got to be, I mean, there's got to be some incentive in the back of his mind to, or maybe he just felt kind of loyal to his uncle to still, he was doing his own side stuff and all of that and being a criminal in his own right, but he was still doing this thing where he's like a courier for fucking demons, essentially. You know what I'm saying? Like he still kind of likes to be in the mix of that somehow, or was that just a loyalty to Nino and kind of wanted to stay on his good side? Like, did he ever question, like, maybe I just need to be a criminal completely away from all of this shit? Like, because this is too fucking crazy.
No, I don't think he ever looked at it like that. It was more like, Nino put him in that position because Nino would go to Florida for
Right.
several months out of the year. So, Dom would handle that part of Nino's interaction with the DeMeo crew and bringing the money back and forth to Paul and accounting for what they were up to with Roy. And he truly had relationships with like him and Henry Borelli were really tight. They were doing shit on the side together. And, when you're running with that type of crew, I mean, listen, Dom was no angel, you know what I mean? And there's a sort of like, high he was getting through that too. So I think that that put him in a power position for actually once, because they had to respect Dominic because of who he was with, because he was with Nino.
Right.
So Dom knew they were all a bunch of fucking psychos, but like I said, Dom was no angel either, and there was something to him being respected and having a little bit of a higher level than just driving for Nino at that point, just being his driver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what really was his real side stuff? Now, he was running around as James Parker mentions here. He was running around at one point. He would call himself the Hole in the Wall Gang.
Yeah.
What is that? That's like was that like Little Rascals or something like that? Is that where that originally comes from? Something like that?
Well, funny enough, they had a place in New Jersey that was like a penthouse across the river, and they joking around called it the Hole in the Wall because it was a beautiful spot they had, right? But it was
okay.
But it was also a take on that Hole in the Wall Gang movie.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like Dom, they were running Quaaludes with a chick out of Studio 54. They were doing extortion schemes, with clubs. They were selling drugs. You know what I'm saying? They were doing robberies. So they were doing all kinds of shit. I mean, you name it, they were taking down what they could.
Yeah, I want to ask you something. As far as like selling the drugs and like Quaaludes or cocaine or whatever else, did you ever see that movie Cocaine Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
The guy John Purnell Roberts, John Roberts? He's like the white dude with the gray hair. He died a few years back, or maybe 10 years ago.
All right.
He's like the guy that's originally from New York, and then he goes there. You could tell he's a New Yorker. He had claimed to be in with Henry Borelli somehow because Henry Borelli was like his sister's husband or some shit. It's a crazy fucking thing. He's got a book, American Desperado. So I was wondering, did Dom ever bring up anything about like Miami cocaine or any of that stuff?
Dom's thing, he had a thing with, first of all, he had a thing with some Dominicans uptown, and he also talked about Matty Rega. He had this thing with Matty Rega going on, which is actually what caused the big fucking blowout with Nino, because there was a whole thing about cocaine deals they were doing with Matty. Matty claimed he owed him X. Dom said that was bullshit. They had to sit down over it. Okay. Then Nino was like, "You're fucking around with drugs and all this." And Dom took off to California. It was around that beef that caused a big dissension with him and Nino. But in the city, I mean, Dom, he had this connection. I forget the name of the girl. He was doing like a robbery, and he met a chick, forget her name, Cheryl, who had the Quaaludes, right? So between the Quaaludes and the fucking cocaine, and I mean, they had a bunch of different sources, and they were rolling,
Okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of this was with Henry Borelli.
Yeah, Henry. It was Henry and him. There was a guy, Val, from Canada. There was some other random players, but from the DeMeo crew, Henry was part of that. But this was like secret, right? It was like their own little thing. Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a good question. Did Dom ever try to contact Henry, or was there ever a conversation between them?
Dom never spoke to anybody once they got locked up, except for when when we came out with our stuff, when we first came out with our stuff. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a whole big thing that happened with that cop, Tommy Dades.
Yeah.
Tommy Dades was on Facebook impersonating Dominic.
Is that real?
This is real. He was pretending he was Dominic and making posts with his like feet by a poolside. And then he started a fucking channel on Facebook with Dominic's name. And it all came out. And then Dominic hit the roof and made his own Facebook page, came out of the woodwork and goes, I'm the real Dominic Montiglio. This motherfucker's a fake. And here's my telephone number. And if any of you motherfuckers want to try to find me, come find me. Call me. He got a call from Anthony Center and
No fucking way.
Carmine Persico when he was still alive. They called him from prison.
Are you
And
fucking
Dom called me
serious?
up. I
Is that
swear,
for real?
Dom called me up and was like, these guys called me from prison and they were talking some shit to me and this and that. And, you know,
What?
yeah, so that was the only interaction. He actually got a phone call from prison from those guys because he posted his number on the internet.
Yeah.
And I'm on the phone and go, what the fuck are you doing?
Wow.
Like, what are you
Wow.
crazy? And he was like, you know what, Rossi, I'm done with this. They want to come find me. I got guns. They got guns. I'd rather go out that way anyway. So, like, let's do this. And I was like, what?
Yeah, and there's a story not long after Dom disappears a little bit into, I guess it would have had to been before Nino died. I don't know, didn't he call Nino's house or something when he was like supposed to be hiding out? Didn't he do
Did
something like
Dominic
that?
call Nino?
Yeah, when he was trying to hide, when he was in the middle of hiding out. Wasn't there a story about that?
I don't recall that, honestly.
Okay.
But I don't really recall that. And again, I got to temper everything I say with, you got to realize Dominic, you know, there was many years toward the end of his life, he was drinking a lot. He had all the medications he had says, do not drink, take alcohol. And
Yeah.
he would drink. And I mean,
Yeah.
he called me one time and told me there was cops out there and the guns were ready and he was behind the shade and it was all a fucking delusion in his mind. So he had some like really like crazy mental snaps, which is what I was describing to you before we got on here about
Yeah.
when he was working on this Vietnam painting. He suffered from PTSD and he had like a mental break. So sometimes there were things that Dominic would tell me that I quite honestly wasn't sure if it was a delusion or if it was reality.
Okay.
Right? I don't want to discredit, but I don't want to
No.
like say that like everything is 100% gospel either.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. But we by the way, we reached out to all those guys when we did our documentary. We wrote everybody letters. Nobody would talk to us.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, I've known other people that have tried to reach out to them, and
Yeah, they're just like,
It's-
fuck that. They're not doing it.
no. I wanna show you one comment, and then I want to we'll talk about when you met Dom a little bit.
Would Nino have had Henry and Dom killed if found out? Well, Dom certainly thought so. Red Raven's spirit. That was what Dom was worried about because Dom was not supposed to be doing that. And that's why when that Matty Rager thing came out that he was dealing coke and all that and that he owed Matty money, that's why Dom split because he feared that Nino was going to kill him. And then when Dom came back to New York to collect that debt from Jeff Winnick,
Yeah.
right? And he got locked up and Nino had a lawyer down at the prison. That's why Dom didn't take that because he was like, they were going to kill me right then and there. Because he made Nino look stupid, you know. Nino all of a sudden couldn't control his nephew, right? And everybody was like, "What the fuck?"
So, for anyone that doesn't know, can you give maybe a synopsis of like how you met Dom, how that happened?
I met Dom at an art show in Tribeca. I had been working as a bartender at an Italian restaurant in downtown Manhattan, and the manager had grown up with Dominic. And said, hey, I'm going down to this thing tonight in Tribeca. You want to come with me? My buddy Dom's down there. I first met Dom there. He was fucking singing doo-wop in the basement, getting drunk. He had some interesting paintings. We kind of hit it off. And then it turned out he was living in Sunset Park, not far from where I was living. And we started kind of, hanging out, going to each other's studios. And he started telling me some stories that I was just like, just couldn't believe what he was telling me.
Right.
And then several months after we became friends, he asked me, could I stay with you for a couple weeks? Because he was on the outs with his girlfriend that he was living with. And 2 weeks turned into about 3 years. I found out everything he was telling me was legit. And we went on this kind of mission to tell his life story in a way that it had never been told and kind of in its entirety.
And what year was that when you met him?
It was like 2002, 2000,
Okay.
something like that. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So yeah, so you guys were friends for just about 20 years.
Yeah, man. We were.
Wow.
We were tight. Yep.
What is this? I don't know if Tommy Dades, I guess he means. This is fucking odd. Is that true? I don't know.
That I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just know that like when Tommy Dades,
Yeah, how did you know that was Tommy Dades that was doing that? Because that's news to me. I mean, that's kind of
the
fucking
whole
crazy.
thing, like Frank Pagola got the information. Dominic's son, Dom Jr., was involved. They were looking for him on Long Island. Like he ended up getting arrested because he beat up, I think he beat some woman up. There was a whole thing that went down with Tommy Dades, and it was really, I mean, it was bizarre as anything could be. Why he chose to impersonate Dominic to this day, I have no idea. But yeah, that went down. It was 100% what went down, and Dominic went fucking nuts. And like I said, he came out of hiding and started a Facebook page to just say, "This is the real Dominic. Like this guy's fucking bullshit." Yeah, check it out. That's right. It's true. It's true. 100% true.
That's wild, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you meet Dom, and then he starts telling you these stories, but so you never read anything. You never read Murder Machine or anything like that. Did somebody like come up to you and tell you, "Hey, you know that guy is, you know who this guy is, right?" And did you had someone kind of explain it to you at some point?
Yeah. What happened was my tattoo artist at the time, his name was B. Cortez. I went up and was getting tattooed at his house, and literally I'm telling him the story, right? And he goes, "Wait a minute, stop." He reached up onto his bookshelf and pulls out Murder Machine. He goes, "This guy is living in your house?" I go, "Yeah, that's the guy." He's like, "No," he's like, "Ross, this guy's a legend." And I was like, "So he says." Like I was like, I didn't know if he was fucking for real. And and yeah, and so like, you know, the next thing I know, I'm living with this guy who's got like a contract out on his head. We're in Brooklyn, you know. He's telling me all this shit, and I'm thinking, fuck, like, all right. The thing that intrigued me the most, to be honest with you, was, you know, my father joined the Marines at the time when Vietnam broke out, and my uncle joined the Navy. And
Right.
so the fact that Dom was a warrior, that he went to fight for our country, and at that time was being disrespected all over the internet. People were saying he wasn't a Green Beret, he was never in the war, he was full of shit. That really got me, because literally the fucking guy had shrapnel still in his arm. We were going to the VA, you know, in Brooklyn to get the shit taken out. I was meeting guys that he was in the war with, right?
Yep.
I was hearing stories. I was reading fucking articles.
Yeah, here's some old articles right here, actually. These are old news articles about mentioning Dominic Montiglio of Levittown comes home.
Yep.
He was in 2 different close call in Viet, makes GI even happier at home. Montiglio 20 of Levittown. So, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it doesn't take that much research to kind of, you know, put some of the pieces together. But you know, the internet, it's like they're quick to say shit is fake before accepting it as reality, instead of being like a good person and maybe accepting things. Oh, maybe that's true. Okay. You know, there's a lot of negativity. I mean, you know how it is.
Yeah. Well, in the start of our friendship and our quest to make our film was right at the birth of like the internet really getting going. So, you know, the guy that wrote this, who's a fucking jerk off, he couldn't get a hold of Dominic's, you know, records because they were sealed by the government. So he just assumed Dom wasn't there, you know?
Yeah.
And he decided to put him in this book called Stolen Valor and throw him in the circle and say that he wasn't a part of it. So, yeah, there were lots of parts that were intriguing to me, but most of all, it's like the way I always looked at Dom was this, you know, you can't judge a man's whole life by one act or certain acts. You got to look at the big picture, right? And like, yeah, was he a gangster? Yeah, he was also a warrior. Everybody is down to praise him for killing Vietnamese, But then if he's killing people here that are in, you know, in the gangster lifestyle with him, he's a criminal, he's a dirtbag, he's a this,
Right.
that, you know, whatever. He's a drug. People were saying he was a drug addict. Other people were calling him a heroin addict. Let me tell you, I did lots of cocaine with Dominic. We got high together back in those days, drunk, high, stoned, whatever. The man never touched heroin in his life.
Okay.
You know, he had no reason to lie to me. You know what I'm saying? So like, you know, I got to know him inside and out and know, and you know, and he was a hell of a guy. He was a hell of a good friend too. That man, anything you needed or wanted to do, whatever was at his disposal, if he was your friend, he was there for you.
Yeah. I think this is a good point right now. I actually we're going to talk more about the film. We're going to talk about a bunch of things, and you guys can write the questions, but at some point I will ask you guys, you know, just to put a bunch of them out there. I want to share a clip with you guys from YouTube. And it's a good clip, and I think it really shows like the relationship between Ross and Dom. It's pretty funny too. So let me pull this up for everybody. I am going to, let's see, Chrome tab. All right, guys. So let's watch this together. It's maybe like 3 minutes, and then we'll talk about it.
What do you want from me? Yeah. Answer me that question.
I want you to listen to me and do what it is I ask of you to do over the next month.
And what
Can
is
you
that?
do that? What is that?
With the art?
What is
I'm
that?
gonna
to
go
create,
nuts with the
create the
art.
best art that you can,
Right?
to try to push yourself to do. Listen to me. To listen to me. To push yourself to do the best art that you can. To try to change your style. Do stuff that you're not as comfortable with.
I'm starting right there.
To not drink too much. To be commingle with people and be you. That's all I want you to do. That's it. And to let me and Billy make the film that we are making, because I'm directing this film with Billy, and we're going to be editing it, and we are going to do it, and you are going to just do the things that we're going to ask you to do, and we might need a shot here and do a shot there, or ask you to talk about
Well,
this.
what do you mean you're going to ask me to do the things that you want me to do?
To paint, to work, we might ask you questions about your life, your past, your present. That's it. It's very simple. It's actually should be the simplest thing. We might ask you to row out to an island of birds and go fishing, or film you in the pool, or just film you just sitting in the backyard, film you painting. This is what we're going to ask you to do.
Right.
Did you not notice?
So this,
Did you not know this, though? I'm just curious.
yeah, no, I kind of knew it,
Okay.
but I didn't know it the way you guys were going to do it. So you guys just want to, like, you know, you want to manipulate the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, we're going to direct it. We're going to actually get what we need to tell a story.
So direction is manipulation.
I mean, direction is, it's manipulate, whatever you want to call it. It's choosing what we need to tell a story. So in other words, if I got you going like this enough times on this one, we won't
Don't touch
film
my
you.
thing.
Okay, we won't film you no more. Okay. I'm gonna. All right.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
Don't you understand? I just mapped the whole fucking thing.
What's your problem? What's wrong with you?
Don't you understand?
Why are you? Fucking
Don't you
doing this?
understand about
What is it?
Machiavelli?
But what is it? Why are you macking me? Why? I'm gonna choke you. This fucking guy. What is the
These are my
problem?
best friends.
What is it? What is the problem, dude?
You didn't get that from when we were outside.
I know.
You didn't
I don't have
even-
a sense of humor. I
It's
really
not
don't.
about
I don't
sense.
get it.
It's about Machiavelli.
What are you doing?
You're playing.
Don't play me.
Oh.
Why would you play me?
Oh. Why would I play you?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be your best friend.
Did
Why
you
do you want
ever
to play
play me?
games with me?
Did you ever play me?
Not really. No.
No, hold on.
I didn't play you.
Oh, no.
You see this fucking guy? I never played you. God, suck it.
I like when you tell him not to play you and he goes, "Oh." Like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to fucking do that, huh?" So he likes fucking around, huh?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, that's Dom right there, man. He just he's always fucking around, and you know, he was a funny motherfucker, man. You know, he was that's Dom right there.
That's fucking funny, dude.
Yeah.
So you guys decide you're going to make this film. So that those are like kind of outtakes, I guess. Those are not in the actual documentary. So what was it like? Did you have to convince Dom a lot that you wanted to make this film, or was he just kind of ready to do it and just tell him what to do and he's going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was like, you know, it really depended on Dom's mood. Like I said, first of all, when he was drinking, he would get, you know, into different moods and mindsets. And sometimes he didn't want to do shit that you'd tell him to do. Like he would just be like, "Oh, I don't want to do that," or "I'm not doing that." At that particular time, we were trying to get him to like, you know, do this Vietnam painting. We are trying to change his style, see if he wanted to change his style up and just kind of like get into something new. And you know, throughout the process, there were days, right, where Dom would just be like, "We're not filming today. I'm not doing it. Fuck that." Then there are the other days he'd be like, "Call Billy up, get over here, get the camera. I want to talk." Like, you know, it depended on what mood he was in. But our relationship was very much like, you know, we joked around a lot, and we just like regular guys do. We just had fun with it, and you know, you had to kind of be on your toes a little bit with Dom because sometimes he would play with you, and you sometimes didn't know if he was serious or not. I mean, I'll tell you a story about Dom. I shot a movie in the house with another production crew while Dom was living with me, right? And they needed the house for a couple days. And I go, "Dom, listen, you're going to have to stay at somebody else's house for a few days. I need the room. They're shooting a movie. I'm going to make some money." And he goes, "Well, Rossi, you know, that's my room, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you know, you live in that room." And he's like, "But it's my room now. So, like, if you're going to make money here, don't you think I should get a cut?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. It's my house. You're living in my house. I'm not giving you a cut." You know what I mean? And he was like, "No, but you should give me a cut because it's my room." And I was like, "Dude, cut the shit. Like, you're not getting, you know what I mean? Like, it was just what he could get away with, Dom would try to get away with. You know what I'm saying?" Yeah.
So I want to just talk about Johnny for 1 second. The guy in the beginning that talks about blowing up on Bath Avenue, that's Detective Frank Pergola. He's talking about Vincent Governara. So they did blow up Vincent Governara on Bath Avenue, but Vincent Governara survives that. And then he later does get killed about right where you said, Johnny. I actually filmed both locations. And I think that I've never seen him, but from what I've heard from you in the past, you actually visited some of these locations with Dominic as well. You guys have some footage of you guys driving around to some of these spots. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. So I hope we get to see that stuff someday. The Governara situation, this is a situation where Dom he places the bomb with the grenade and the line. So when the guy opens the door, he blows up. So Vincent Mook Governara, the former Golden Gloves boxer, he survives that, right? But the story goes that they're at a birthday party for, is it Dominic's daughter?
No, it was Nino's wife, I believe.
A birthday party at the house on Cropsey Avenue, right?
Yeah. And Roy comes in and says, "I just seen Vinnie Mook on 86th Street."
Right. So they leave this party in fucking broad daylight and they execute this guy in the street, which in a busy area, because I went to see where that was myself. It's pretty fucking busy. I would imagine the same back then.
Yeah.
Did Dom ever give me 1 second? Vinnie Boom Bots, you're amazing, buddy. Thank you so much. That's a donation from Vinnie Boom Bots.
Nice.
Wow. Thank you so much, Vinny. I really appreciate that. You are the man. Thank you, buddy. So did Dominic ever talk to you about that? Because that's a pretty wild story. And that's like, so we don't know a lot about Dominic, like the full extent of his exploits, of course. I'm sure a lot of the things he never wanted to talk about, but that's kind of one that's in Murder Machine. That's kind of widely known that he was there, right? When they went to basically finish this guy's life.
Oh yeah.
So what did Dom tell you about doing a hit with Nino Gaggi and Roy DeMeo in broad daylight in fucking Brooklyn. What did he tell you about that incident?
He was just he was fucking shocked that Nino was like, all right, come on, we're going to go do this right now. And Dom said to Nino, we're going to go kill Vinnie Mook because he broke your nose 12 years ago. Like, you serious? Right now in the middle of broad daylight, we're going to leave this party and we're going to go kill him. And Nino was like, yeah, you're going to do it. You're going to shoot him because, you were supposed to get him back when, and here he is, and we're doing this. And Dom's like, there was nothing I could do. Like, I couldn't tell my uncle and Roy, I'm not down and I'm not going. But Dom was, he kind of couldn't believe it. I mean, Nino couldn't let it go, because this was a thing where this guy basically beat up Nino.
Yeah.
And Nino just could not let that go.
It's crazy, and something I was thinking about recently, because I had befriended a guy who, his name's Kevin Marr, and he was a young kid kind of working for Joe Bacchini, someone that they killed around the same time. I'm sure you probably heard that story. He was a made guy that Nino kind of gave him permission to Henry and Roy and them to just go there and kill him, even though they shouldn't have. And this was also, I think it was like a month after they killed Vinnie Mook. Roy does this like revenge killing on Joe Bacchini because Joe Bacchini punched him in the face fucking months back or a year ago or something like that. So these guys were very fucking spiteful, huh? Like they just didn't let anything go. Did he ever talk about that crew in a sense where it's like, if they want you, they're going to fucking get you and that's it? They're never going to stop? Or what was kind of his outlook on that?
Yeah, no, these guys were, these were treacherous people. I mean, if you fucked with them and you crossed them, you probably weren't going to survive it. He told the story of one time being in a club with the crew, and a guy was talking to one of the girls that they were with, and they ended up all going to the bathroom, and they grabbed this guy, took him in the bathroom, and beat the guy half to death and stuffed him in a stall, in the club.
Wow.
For just trying to talk to one of their girls. Like, the guy was just like some guy in a club talking to, you know what I mean? He didn't know.
Yeah, like,
and he said, I don't even know if the guy was alive or dead when we left him. They just pummeled him and stuffed him in a stall, and then they broke out. Like, so yeah, I mean, they were dangerous people. They were very dangerous people,
So Vinnie Boombot says, Ross and I have had contact in the past via email. I'm not sure he wants me to mention our correspondence, but just wanted to thank him again for the opportunity he provided him. That's what Vinnie Boombot says. I don't know if that means anything to you.
Vinny, I don't remember, to be honest with you, because I've interacted with so many people over the years, but
I'm guessing it wasn't under the name Vinnie Boombot, so maybe.
What opportunity did I provide? If I did something good for you, God bless. I don't necessarily remember. It was probably under a different name.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
Right?
Yeah. I would guarantee that Dr. Vinnie Boombots was not the person you were emailing with in that name. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I would have remembered that.
But thank you, Vinny. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So let's see what we got here. So let's talk about Uncle Nino, because this guy right here, here's a younger version of him here. This is him and his wife, who last I checked is still alive, looking pretty good. So what would he tell you about his Uncle Nino? Like characteristics, personality. What would he say about him mostly? I mean, he was truly like mafia, truly Cosa Nostra, 100%.
100%. Just lived it, breathed it, Cosa Nostra to the bone. Nino was he was like one of them old school gangsters, didn't talk too much, wasn't loud, took care of business, you know what I mean? And very calculating, very, Machiavellian thinking. groomed Dominic from a young age. You know, I mean, from a very young age, he was being schooled by Nino, and Nino was all about that life from day one. You know, I mean, Nino was against Dominic when Dominic joined the army. He said, "What are you doing? Like, you don't go kill for the government, you kill for us. Like,
Right.
you stupid." Like he
Yeah.
constantly rode Dominic about that stuff. And yeah, Nino was very dangerous. Dom just said, like, as a kid, he was scared of Nino, but he respected Nino a lot. He loved Nino, and it broke his heart what happened with Nino. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, Dom would say, like, it couldn't have been a worse ending between them, right? The truth is, Dominic felt like the way his life went was a fucking an abomination. You got to understand, he's a loyal guy who only wanted to, do the right thing by his uncle in his heart, and also just by the code of the street. He never wanted to end up in the position that he ended up in. It's just merely by the fact of his personality and that he couldn't be kept under Nino's wing, that he had to bust out and do his shit. He went against his uncle and then ended up being pitted against him, and then ended up, cooperating with the government. His uncle dies of a heart attack in jail. I mean, it was to the day he died, it was a misery for him that's the way it went down. But, that's what happened when you cross paths with Nino. Like, Nino wasn't going to bend. Nino was not going to give Dominic a pass. So it's the way it went. But he loved his uncle. That he really did. But Nino was a fucking gangster.
Paulie Dibbs. He said, funny because Nino himself tried joining the army and he said, but they rejected him. I don't recall. Is that true? Did Dom ever mention that?
I never heard that. I don't know. I never heard that.
That's interesting. Test and Sender killed a friend of mine, John Costello. Yeah, they did kill John Costello in 1977. That is true. That was your friend. Well, I'm sorry about that. There's a lot actually behind that story. It'll be coming out in my friend's book, Quentin Walker, Darkness Underneath podcast. He's working on that DeMeo book. There's going to be some interesting stuff about this, about apparently your friend's death, Johnny. So I hope you read that book when it comes out. Nino was a frightening human being unless he loved you, it seems.
Yeah, but even if he loved you, if you got on the wrong side of what Nino wanted you to do, you were in deep shit.
That's true. This and that. So let's talk about Dom's art, because that's something that stuff like this drawing here.
Yeah.
These, I believe last time you referred to them as patchwork paintings, he had called them, or is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, Dominic, look, as you see here, Dominic had this really unique style that he developed while living in my studio, where he would create these little patches and then he would glue them together on the board and form these collages. And if you look at them, I mean, he really told the story of his life with symbolism and all kinds of storytelling. And he just had his own fucking unique style. Like you see a Dominic Montiglio painting, it was made by him, right? Which is like, honestly, the trademark of a really good artist.
Right, exactly.
He didn't copy anybody, like this is original. This is his shit. There he is. And that painting behind him, I own that painting. I have that painting.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've got about 6 or 7 paintings of him. I have that piece too. Now this here is interesting because my buddy B Cortez, who also tattooed Dominic a number of times, we were talking about Dominic making tattoo flash, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like you see in a tattoo parlor.
This
was tattoo flash.
I got some right here, actually.
Originals. Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So imagine this, like, and not for nothing. Let me see if I could show it here, but
sure.
I've got
Hold on, let me hide this.
See that?
Oh shit, yeah.
I got one of his gangsters on my leg.
Yeah, that kind of looks like this guy a little bit.
Yeah. And he made these like really cool, that was his thing. These gangsters that he made.
Yeah.
And honestly, he was a fucking amazing artist. And the guy would get up when he was living with me, he'd work 14 hours straight. He'd stay in the studio all day and night, and we would just make art and talk shit and drink and whatever the fuck. And, we would just make art. He was really prolific artist.
Let's see. Just seeing if there's any comments here.
And while you're looking at those comments, I have about 25 drawings of his.
Okay.
And if anybody's ever interested, they can get in touch with you or whatever. But anybody that's smart out there that understands collecting art, they're fucking masterpieces.
All right. So Red Raven asked, and I think Raven asked before, where are his paintings now? And I think Raven, that was you that asked before, how do you see their value? I guess she was wondering if there's like a lot of collectors, or I'm sure there's definitely other people that have his paintings aside from you.
So great question. So let me break this down. When we were living in Brooklyn, Hansel Kostner, who is the owner of Red Bull, loved Dominic's work, bought a bunch of Dominic's pieces, and through those sales sponsored Dominic to paint for like a year in my studio. He owns a bunch of Dom's work. Dom sold a bunch of pieces at some art shows we did, but when he died, I was left with, I've got, like I said, 6 or 7 paintings, original paintings, and I've got about 25 of his drawings, and that's it. That's all that exists on this.
Wow.
So the value, it's honestly hard to even know what it is, because now he's gone. He can't make any more, and I don't even know. Like, most of them I probably won't part with.
Yeah.
I'd probably be willing to part with some drawings for sure, and maybe a painting if it went to a right special collector. But again, like, I couldn't even begin to figure out what the price tag is, truthfully.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like the market really hasn't been created, so somebody's going to have to create it. It's just going to have to, some kind of precedent has to be set, or that's kind of how it has to work, right?
Well, the art world's always about what is somebody willing to pay, and that's what he sold paintings for thousands of dollars. But when he was alive, that was one thing. Now that he's not, it's like a rare item that nobody, right? So it's kind of it's priceless. Yeah,
it just takes that one person. I mean, like you said, the art market's funny, but if tomorrow somebody pays $10,000 for a Dom painting, that kind of sets the mark. So it has to someone has to set it. I mean, I'm sure that it's going to happen. I mean, that's what I was. Raw, very generous, allowing me to Oh, okay.
Oh, now I know who Vinnie Boombox is.
Okay,
excellent. Got you.
There you go.
Yes. So Vinnie is one of. So here's the deal. Certain people during Dom's life were that interested and reached out to me and were able to get pieces.
Okay.
This guy here actually bought a beautiful double-sided, because that's another thing Dom would do. He'd paint on 2 sides of things sometimes. He actually ended up getting a double-sided piece, which was really, really awesome.
Well, that's awesome, Vinny. That's really cool, man.
Yeah, and he's one of the few guys that has Dom's work. Like, honestly, maybe there's 20 collectors that have pieces of Dominic's that I know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he's one of them. So
if I remember correct, Dom said he started painting when he first moved out to Berkeley, California.
Actually, he was making art out there, but he was mostly doing music. So I think he might have been dabbling when he was painting in Berkeley was houses. he was working as a house painter, and but he was mostly doing music out in Berkeley.
All right. So we spoke about this in an interview. Well, actually, no, we didn't really speak about this last time. So like in the early 90s, after Dom was he was in, WITSEC or whatever you want to call it. He was in witness protection or witness securities. And he was popping up like in the early 90s, like on stuff like this. Like he would pop up in all these documentaries, Discovery, Fox or whatever that says there. He was on a few of them.
Yeah.
They were kind of following him around. He had on like a mustache. He looked like an all-American dude going into a little convenience store or something. Did he talk to you about that period in his life? He officially leaves that life behind. He's become a cooperating witness. In his mind, he's probably thinks he's a fucking pariah on the streets of New York City. Did he speak to you much about that time in his life, going on all these shows, living a life of disguise? What was that like?
Miserable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He said, first of all, they barely give you enough money to live. So, you've got no way to really take care of your family. He ended up not being able to be with his family, right? And he went it alone. He had to be bounced around from place to place, so he never could get roots anywhere. The guy had no job experience to like go get a job, right? Because he was either in the military or a gangster. So he's bouncing around trying to do different things. Dom got into shit all the fucking time. That's another thing. Like the reason he got kicked out of WITSEC was because he was getting into problems in different places that he'd go. He'd get drunk at a bar and start telling people his story, or he had a beef with the Banditos up in Seattle. He had to get out of there. He just was, he was like a bull in a china shop wherever he went. So that was one of the problems, right? He's being bounced around. He did say that when they would track him down here and there and he'd do those shows, it was fine. But you got to keep in mind, which is again, what makes Lynchpin of Bensonhurst so unique is that all his interviews were based on what was general knowledge through the trials that he was involved in, right?
Yeah.
All that like public record shit, that's what he was always interviewed about. All those things, the Vinnie Mook story and everything that was related to the trial and the Paul Castellano and his testifying regarding those things. Lynchpin and Bensonhurst is about Dominic Montiglio, his life from being a little boy up until, the point he decided to become an artist and come back to Brooklyn and see what he could do. It's an emotional, personal story told by the man himself, with things that are that nobody knew about, stories.
Yeah.
And I have untold stories. Billy and I are trying to figure out what to do with them now, whether we're going to create a YouTube channel or another documentary. I mean, we have endless stories from Dom about his life. So
Yeah.
I forget the name of the guy that did Current Affair. Do you remember his name? The guy, Bill.
Current Affair?
Yeah.
Bill O'Reilly?
No, it was something else.
I think he did do it back in the day, right?
Was it? Yeah, I forget the name of the guy, but he told me that the guy from Current Affair, him and Dom did like a fucking 2-day bender and got shit faced for like 2 days together.
It probably wasn't Bill O'Reilly then.
No, it was someone else. His name. But yeah.
So I was thinking also recently before this interview, obviously it's probably extremely difficult to be Dominic Montiglio at that time, but did he ever look back and think to himself, like, you know what, maybe I didn't have to run away. Maybe I kind of exaggerated what really was going on in New York City in the early 90s, where it was like all these guys were getting taken down. Castellano was gone. If you look at the indictments, right, in 1984 with Paul Castellano, it's a bunch of fucking pariahs. It's the whole DeMeo crew. It's like 22 members of the DeMeo crew, a bunch of fucking derelicts. Some of them are high up. Most of them are just like, I mean, you got guys, loose affiliates stealing cars. You got like that guy, Eddie Randini, with the fucking silencers. You got this ragtag group of guys. It's not like, and he was kind of cooperating against kind of that. And then Gotti came in, killed Castellano, kind of got rid of a lot of that stuff. Did he ever think back, like, you know what, maybe I didn't have to fucking disappear as long as I did? Maybe I didn't read the situation correctly? Or was he confident that he had to get the fuck out of town?
No, because you got to understand, like, as Dom always said, there's always like somebody coming up trying to make their bones.
Okay.
So like Dom would be a target for some up and comer to like, get a little notch in their belt and take Dom out. So Dominic knew. And plus, like, you can't legally carry guns in New York. So Dominic liked being in places where he could carry a gun.
Okay.
Always protect himself. And that's what he did. When he came to Brooklyn, by the way, he had a piece with him, Like,
Oh, really? When he came back?
oh yeah, when he came back, he had a piece in my house. He always had a piece. But the thing was, the reason he came back was because what happened was Dominic came back up to New York and was living in his sister's garage on Long Island. He made a mural in the garage that he fixed up, and his old friend Peter Weiss saw that mural. Peter was running a gallery in Manhattan and said, Dom, you're a freaking amazing painter. You got to do something with this. And encouraged Dominic to make some paintings. And Peter's the one who really got him to do his first show and stuff. And that's when Dom was like, you know what? Maybe at this point, the juice is worth the squeeze for me to like come back to New York and see if I can make my life as a painter. Most of these guys are dead or locked up forever,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm going to go for it. But those first years that he was gone, that long stretch where he was all over the place, I mean, he did the right thing. Because, you know, no matter what, you know, in that life, if you do what he ultimately did, you know, you got a fucking target on your back.
Yeah. And speaking of having to cooperate, Red Raven's got a good question. Did he ever tell you any stories about when he had to testify in court against the crew right in front of them? Yeah, I'm sure that must have been, I mean, terrifying. Yeah, these guys are looking, you know, these guys have killed people, numerous people. Some of them got off, you know, without being charged with any murders, even though it, you know, law enforcement, everyone else is pretty confident that they did commit multiple murders. So yeah, what did he talk about as far as that with you having to sit there?
He said that I'll never forget. He said that they would have guys planted in the gallery, like sitting in the back.
Oh, like, no way!
I would be going like this to him while he was sitting on the stand.
Wow!
Being like, "You're fucking dead." They were constantly staring him down. He said there was nothing more fucking harrowing than to go and sit in front of all those people and testify. It was, and the worst was the buildup, because basically you're in the middle of nowhere, knowing that there's a date and time that you're gonna do this thing, and you got to be sweating it. Wow. And then the day comes, and you walk in front of all these guys that you've known, and they're all looking at you, you know, with daggers, and people are motioning that you're going to get killed. And, you know, you're with the marshals and they're shuttling you around. I mean, it was what he said. It was the worst time of his life for sure. You know?
So was there anyone in particular, did he mention anyone that creeped him out? I mean, obviously the twins were there. I mean, Henry Borelli, this guy who's supposed to be his close friend, obviously has to stare him down in court. I mean, what was that like? I mean, that must have been,
you know, he just said you can't understand what it feels like to be in that spot where, you know, you're basically betraying people that you were running with, some of them who were your best friends, others who, whether you were tight with them or not, you respected them for what they were, you were with them, you know what they were capable of. You feel like a piece of shit, you know? I mean, no matter what any person that goes through that says, no matter how much they rationalize it, you know, it still doesn't feel good to go through it. That's how he explained it to me. Like, he's like, I did what I had to do. I wasn't going to leave my wife and children behind and get killed because they were paranoid of me. And then once I made the decision to flip, I had to go through with what it is that I went through. And he's like, and I did it. And, you know, it was them or him.
Yeah. I'm going to put this comment on from Johnny Bradfield. Then I want to make a point about Dom too. He said he was put in that situation. This is how Johnny feels. He said he was put in that situation. I guess he's saying maybe he wasn't cut out for that life, and Nino kind of treated him like a robot. Maybe he was training him to do things. Maybe maybe that's true. You know, Ross. I mean, he was a musician. He had art inside him. He was a soldier. He wanted to be so many things. Was he really better cut out for something greater in life? Do you believe that?
Oh, I certainly believe that Dom had another path that he wished he walked, and that fucking Nino, if he had just encouraged him when he was a musician and given him a foot into that world, Dom would have been a completely different person. Dom had a light inside of him that I don't feel like some of these other people had. Now, I can't talk to like what Joey or Anthony or Chris or any of those DeMeo guys were about, because who knows what light inside of them they had or not, right? They were killers, but like everybody's got a dichotomy. I don't know what they were about, but Dominic certainly had other interests and other things he was very good at. And I won't say that, like, when he says Dom wasn't cut out for it, Dom was capable, but what I think he's alluding to, certainly, and he's 100% right about being Nino's robot, he was not cut out to be anybody's underling, right? Like, that was just not a position Dominic was going to play. And the whole thing with Dominic, even when you see our interaction joking around, like, he's like, what do you want me to do? We always had like this little funny power struggle where it was like, I'll do this, but never treat me like I'm your puppet, right? Like, I'm my own man and I'm going to do things the way I want to do them, one way or the other. And that was Dom's thing. It's like he wasn't down to be, just Nino's little fucking robot. Nino, point him in this direction and go do my bidding thing. Dom was a visionary, and he had greater aspirations in life,
right?
And to be Nino's right-hand man.
Yeah, which brings me to a point I wanted to make too, where it's like there's a lot of famous informants in the mob. You want to call them rats, you want to call them witnesses, informants, whatever, what have you. Not many of them I view, first of all, I don't care who's a rat. It's not my life. I'm not one of those guys, but not many of them are like sympathetic characters. Some of them, you'll see them on the stand, or you hear the rat, and then you look at them and things are done. You're like, this motherfucker, man. But Dominic kind of remains to be almost like a sympathetic character. At least that's kind of what I see, where I see there's not like, when he gets brought up, there's more of a sense of people want to know more about him, or they're interested in the documentary about him. Or why do you think that is? Do you think that's because of the people he was involved in? Kind of this darkness that he was really surrounded with, that he kind of remains a sympathetic character as far as being a rat or whatever the fuck it may be?
I mean, it's like, how many of these guys do you hear are artists or musicians, right? Or were soldiers and did what they did for their country? Like, he was a rare bird. I'll give you a little metaphor, but like, let's look at Sammy the Bull for a second, right?
Yeah.
Like, now he's super creative. He's a great storyteller, right? Like, he was great in business. So Sammy had the ability to do all the things he did as a gangster, but like, look at him. He was also capable of a lot more, right? And I think that, some of these guys, they are capable of all kinds of different things that, because of the life they choose, nobody's going to ever know. Dominic, you actually got a taste of it. You saw he was a doo-wop singer. You saw he was a soldier. You see that in the end of his life, he was creating art. He had the ability to go a different direction and be somebody. But his fucking uncle, he just, for whatever reason, Dominic couldn't break away from that, and he got caught up, But I agree with the comments where it's like, he really could have been. And he used to say that to me, Rossi. I wish. His biggest thing, he said, I never should have come home from Berkeley. He never should have come back for Winnick.
Yeah.
He just stayed with his wife, raised kids out there, played music out there. He's like, I was happy out there. The biggest mistake he ever made was coming back to Brooklyn.
Yeah, I agree with you in that. I don't know, not so much on the Sammy part, because I do look at Sammy as a creative guy, as a smart guy, but I also kind of look at him as kind of like a boogeyman also. So I have less sympathy for him as far as his being an informant. Yep. But Dom, I look at him as a guy that was kind of surrounded by fucking 10 boogeymen and his uncle and real serial killers. And I think, getting, wanting to distance yourself away from that. And I mean, let's face it. I mean, in the end of the day, guys like that really don't deserve to be running around the fucking streets. So I think that's another reason why Dom might be looked at as a sympathetic character, or why he kind of gets a pass a lot of the times, because of the serial killers or whatever that he kind of found himself amongst. I think that plays into it, to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Brett. Yeah, I could see what you're saying. Sure.
So in the world of the mafia music, well, this was Nino Gaggi's opinion, right?
Oh yeah, no, he was. Nino was like totally against. He said musicians were drug addicts and womanizers.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was total contradictory bullshit because what do gangsters do? I mean, they got girlfriends on the side, they're getting high, they're drinking, they're hanging out, they're doing their thing too. Everybody is, I mean, they're as much degenerate. Some of them are as big a degenerates as anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gennaro Boots, do you speak to his daughter?
Not these days, but I'm not like on like not for any other reason than just like we don't have anything to talk about right now.
Okay.
When there was things to talk about, like after he passed away. I have some of Dominic's ashes. Like she sent me some of his ashes.
Oh wow.
Dominic wanted to have his ashes spread out on Cropsey Avenue. And I have some of them, and I'm waiting for the right time. I'm actually going to spread them on Cropsey Avenue at some point. She's got most of them. It's, be honest with you, Brad, it's the weirdest thing to have one of your best friends' ashes on your fucking desk somewhere. Like it's a very strange thing, right?
Yeah.
But that was his wishes. Dominic, whatever proceeds that we did from like shows or things that we have, because Dom was my partner, I always promised that I would do the right thing and send the money to his daughter and his son, which I've done. We haven't made a lot of money yet, but the little things that we have done, whatever I get, I send to them. So both Dom Jr. and his daughter, I have their numbers in my phone. And, we're in contact as need be, but we're not like, we don't talk to each other on a regular basis or anything.
Okay. All right. Johnny, again, you're sympathetic because he was forced into that situation. It wasn't something that was his end goal.
I agree. That's for sure.
Bill Johnson, he loved Cropsey Avenue and the neighborhood. Frankie Batts, how are you, buddy? Good to see you. The bunker that was over there on Cropsey.
Yeah, that's where I was thinking of doing it, right around there.
That would be cool. You should film it.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, definitely film that. Let's see. I know we have a few other things to talk about. So Dominic passed away in 2021. While he is kind of in a bad way, it's looking back, it was the end of his life. Investigation Discovery approaches a few people about a podcast for its ID, right? Investigation Discovery. Is that what that is, Ross?
It was a branch of Discovery. I forget the exact branch.
Okay. It's on Spotify. It's on iTunes. A lot of you guys watching this now. We got 70 something people here right now. A lot of you guys watching this now probably have commented about it. I know some of you have seen it. It was called the Mafia Tapes. And Ross made an appearance there. Dominic is obviously, he's kind of like, the backdrop is Dominic, this woman, the journalist who did it, Celia, going to visit Dominic. But there's other cameos. There's detectives in there. Pete LaFroche is in there talking. How did this thing come about? And we'll talk about the reception of it. We're going to be talking about the Mafia Tapes, everybody. Discovery podcast.
I was approached by some producers in New York. And initially, they knew I had a lot of tapes. That's why it's called Mafia Tapes. I had a lot of tapes that, as you know, we made Lynchpin from. They used a lot of those tapes to pull information out of and sort of like start a structure for their show. So they came to me with it. To be quite honest with you, I have some serious regrets about doing that show. I wasn't very happy with how it ended up. Kind of, it sucked that was Dominic's last like live show that he was involved in. I don't like the way he was necessarily represented there. I don't necessarily like the way Celia laid it out. It was a tough fucking pill to swallow, that show, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it a little before we came on. I didn't particularly like it. I know a couple of people, other people didn't particularly care for it. One person in particular was going to make a video about how much he hated it. I kind of told him not to. So yeah, Ray Varian says, I felt the interviewer interjected herself into the story. Yeah, that's one of the big issues. You want to talk about that, Ross?
Yeah, no, she's 100% right. I mean, it was like almost like it was about her and her story about like meeting him and these people. And I think she interjected herself way too much. Everybody commented on that.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people liked the way she put herself into it. That's number one. I mean, number two, for me, well, first of all, let me back up. One of the things that I really didn't like about the story is afterwards there were all these comments, and some people started commenting about me, saying that I took advantage of Dom and I was a con man, and I was benefiting from Dom's thing. It really pissed me off because, as you seen in the clip you saw, Dom and I were very tight. Dom was my partner, right? Like it wasn't like I took Dom's story and Dom didn't get nothing. Like we were partners, and even in death, he's my partner and his family's my partner. So I got very, it pisses me off to whoever wrote those comments. Fuck you, because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yeah. Dom was like a brother to me. I didn't take advantage of Dom. And that also implies that Dom was some type of sucker, and Dom was not a sucker. So that's that. That's just like on a personal note. But the thing about it was like Dom was dying during that interview. He literally was on his bed. They were begging me to do this, and I had been saying no. And then Dom was like, Ross, I could use the money, and if they could make a donation, it would be great. Maybe they buy some art or whatever, see what you could do. And I was like, well, I'm going to look into it. Let me see what we could do. And he was just like, I if I get another chance to tell my story, why not? And yeah, like it seemed she came off in a certain way in the beginning, but again, like you just don't know how people are going to tell a story. She drew it out over many sessions. There was a lot of different angles that it came at that kind of I felt certainly trying to paint him in a certain light that I didn't feel was, it just wasn't, there was something off about it. She would call me and then she would record me and not let me know. And then at the end, she's like, hey, listen, I recorded you. We're going to put this thing out. Do you mind? Like when Dom was dying and I called you, you were really upset. I have that stuff. And for creative purposes, I thought like, all right, yeah, I'll let you do it because that I had nothing to hide. That was truly how I felt, right? Like my buddy's in the hospital dying and she calls me and I'm like, he's probably not going to live through the night or whatever it was. He was on life support. But, if I could have done it again, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't have done it. I just didn't like it in the end. I didn't like it. And like nothing against Celia. Like I personally, no disrespect to her or the people but it wasn't for my taste. No.
Yeah, no, a lot of people didn't like it. I mean, it almost came off like a little exploitive, I don't know. Some of the description of like how he was living and all that other stuff, like her descriptions of like where he was, his apartment, you could obviously see or hear that, he was not well. I mean, it was pretty apparent that, unfortunately his time was coming to an end. And I just felt like, yeah, it was more, I guess it's more of a reflection of like journalism as a whole today, not to like sound like that, but a lot of this stuff is kind of like journalists injecting themselves in the story, trying to be a part of the story, trying to be close to it as they can, maybe even like going the extra mile to argue with somebody or whatever to make them a part of the political story or the cultural story. So it's kind of a reflection of really what's going on. Have you thought about that?
Well, you just made a good point, and you reminded me that was a very, very key point. So there's Dom, he's dying. He can't remember shit. His memory was fucking shot. And he started telling stories that weren't the story. Like he couldn't remember it,
Yeah.
And, she used it. And then I was like, Celia, what are you doing? Like, that's not even the story. You know what I mean? and how could you use that? How could you use that in your documentary? Well, he said it. I'm like, well, he said it, but he's literally died like 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
You should have rescinded that. That wasn't the way it was, but they used it anyway. And thank you guys for these nice comments. I appreciate that. It's very nice of you guys to say that.
Yeah, you know what? She kind of almost painted it in a way where it's like somebody who might have just like read Murder Machine and knew loosely a little bit about the story. She kind of painted it in a way where it's like you almost questioned if anything he ever said was true. And that when I saw her doing that, I was like, wow, this is fucking crazy. This lady's like undoing 35 years of history. Like she's kind of just like, meanwhile, I don't even know how well she knows the fucking story, if you know how things go now with journalism. So did you think about that too? Like she was kind of painting him as like this fucking 35, 40-year teller of tall tales or something?
100%, man. 100%. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I mean, it was so fucked up. It was just like, how could you do that to this man? The stuff that I got from him was when his mind was fresh. It was, almost 18 years earlier, right? And it lined up. And now you got him on his deathbed, weeks before he passes away. You're in an interview with him and you're using stuff. And you got a guy like me who lived with him for several years, who knew him intimately over many years, heard these stories 100 times. You had Frank Pergola, who also knew these stories inside and out. Both of us are telling her, no, you can't use that. That's not right. Or you got to get rid of this. And she didn't listen because she wanted to use it to like for her narrative, right? She wanted to use it to paint the picture she wanted, whether it was right or wrong or discredited him. It was fucked up. And I do blame myself because there I was. I knew not to put him on this show. I knew, I kept saying no. And then at the very end, I gave in because he kind of wanted to do it. And I should have actually gone to New Mexico and seen from my own eyes really where he was at.
Yeah.
It's fucked up. It's fucked up. I mean, fuck that.
Thank you for being here, Michelle. Yeah, well, like some of these people said, hindsight's 2020. Obviously, don't beat yourself up over it. I mean, you had good intentions, Dom, this could be his last chance, to, really say what he wants to say. And it's unfortunate, but
that's the thing,
Yeah.
It was all mumbled and jumbled. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you got to see my movie.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, let's tell people the best way to watch it.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now you can see it for free on Tubi. Billy and I are going to be creating a YouTube channel with the unique clip that you saw tonight. We're going to start to leak out some new clips that people have never seen. So that's a thing. And again, like I told you before the show when we were talking, we have so much footage. We're going to either come out with a part 2 to Lynchpin of Bensonhurst, or we're going to just have like a YouTube channel where you're going to just be able to tune in and see lots of clips, and we're just going to share a ton of stuff. We got to figure it out, but we're on the verge of having a lot of new stuff about Dominic that people have never seen, stories they've never heard. But for most of you that haven't seen Lynchpin, if you're interested in the real story told by the man himself when he was cognizant, when he was in his, strength, that you got to see Lynchpin, because that's an intimate, storytelling between him just telling me, his friend, his life story while in a painting studio, Yeah.
DominickMontiglio.org. That's kind of the best way that'll have the link to the Vimeo.
Yep.
Up top, right?
Yeah. If you want to buy the movie, you can still, if you want to own it. But if you don't got it like that and you just want to, watch it, stream it, just go on Tubi. It's free. I think it's on Google Plus and this, and it's on a bunch of things. You just Google Lynchpin of Bensonhurst. You can find a way to watch it. But also DominickMontiglio.org. Sure.
Yeah, and if you guys have, if you guys go on YouTube and you type in Dominic Montiglio clips, usually you'll get to a channel which is B Sharp, right? I think that's Brian Sharp's channel.
Billy Sharp.
Billy Sharp. And then there's probably another one that might have something to do with the film. If you guys don't mind, just subscribe to all of those, because at some point I think Ross is probably going to come together with Billy and kind of make maybe one channel. So I'm sure he'll, make you guys aware on one of those channels, or you'll kind of notice that that's the Dominic Montiglio channel now. So please subscribe to all those channels. Gennaro Boots, I know you said before, I don't know what this comment's about, but I know you said something before about those clips being really cool that Sharp has been putting up. You have a lot of those clips, right? A lot of stuff we've never seen before.
Yeah, no, I got a ton of stuff that nobody's ever seen. The whole thing is like when we got a distribution deal with Xenon Pictures, they were gonna start a YouTube. Billy had one. I've got my Dog's Day production YouTube channel. We just had to figure out how to coordinate, to be honest with you, to put it all in one place. Billy and I thought we were going to do it individually, and then the company was going to do it. And it turned out that the best way is for us to find one way to do it so that everybody knows to go to that one spot. And it's just the shortcoming of us in our first year of releasing the film, not really being adept enough to understand the best way to do it yet, but we're working on it. And believe me, this year we're going to have one place where you're going to get to see stories you never heard and things you've never seen with Dominic. I mean, you're going to have to tune in. I don't even want to say what you're going to see. You just got to tune in. You'll see Dominic doing things wouldn't believe that he would be doing.
That's what's up, man. I'm happy. Yeah, I'm definitely happy. I'm looking forward to seeing that. So you guys make sure you follow those accounts, please. And anything that Ross does or him and Sharp do, I'm always going to post it on my channel. So you guys are always going to be up to date on what's going on with that. This is the age-old question, Ross. And I actually went to I don't know, we could have a conversation. I recently went to the DeMeo home in Massapequa over there. And I got into a little shit over there. But the barbecue footage is the age-old question. Now, do you know it exists? I mean, I know somebody who knows someone which is the same person that you know. I'm not going to say the name. It's the same person that you know that has it. I know someone that has spoke to that person, but
it exists, and there will be more of it to come.
Okay.
There'll be more of it to come. It's in a digital format. I know Billy has it somewhere in his files, and we've just been talking about when and how to get it out there. I know a lot of people want it. A lot of people want to see it. And yeah, there'll be more. I mean, there's a full barbecue.
Yeah, there's a full, and I definitely, I mean, a lot of people want to see that as it's like one of those morbid curiosity things or whatever, I guess. I don't know, because it's like the reputation that these guys have. Yeah, I was over there recently. The whole fucking place is falling apart. Who's ever living there is, I don't know. Something weird going on there. Something about as weird as what used to go on there, I guess. I don't know what's going on there.
Huh.
Wikipedia, half of the gangland news and accurate on the street. You don't know the real story. Okay. Anybody have any more questions? I don't want to keep Ross all night, but I want you guys to listen. If you haven't watched the documentary, DominicMontiglio.org, or you can get it on Tubi, which is a streaming app. It's $10 to rent it. If you don't want to buy it, the $20, you can rent it for $10, which is like a coffee and a muffin. And so, just don't have Starbucks for one day. You could watch a great documentary. How's that sound?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is this? That question has haunted me for a year. What question is that? Is that the barbecue question? Just a year? That's it? No. Is Art Ruffles still alive?
No, Art Ruffles.
He passed away, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He put out a clip of Ruffles. Wait, was that Ruffles talking in the clip that Brian put out?
Yeah. Well, no, that's Pergola.
Well, it was Pergola, but then there was another one I think he just put out.
Yeah. We got one with Art. I've got an hour and a half of Art Ruffles.
That's awesome, man.
You know what I mean?
Awesome.
I got hours of Frank Pergola. I got endless shit, man. You
guys got to understand something with this DeMeo story. Like, these guys that helped take him down. These guys are fucking legends. I mean, you're talking about detectives and FBI agents that are like, I mean, because you got to stop thinking about it like, oh, the mafia, whatever. I mean, these guys took down some serious evil people. I mean,
No doubt.
that honestly don't deserve to be walking the streets. And they, a lot of the times they had to probably do some real like Dirty Harry shit to get their job done. So you got to respect some of these guys. I know we have a lot of negative opinions on police or a lot of the things they do, but some of these old school guys, man, if you could hear their stories, I mean, I'm always down to listen to this, man. I love that stuff.
Yep.
New York City crime. What was this that you said? Oh, shit.
Yeah, Dominic could not stand Chris. He hated Chris.
Yeah.
Hated him. Like him and Chris were like oil and water, and they both wanted to kill each other. And it was just out of the dynamic with Roy having Chris under his wing, and Nino being on Dom being under Nino's wing, that the two of them didn't get to kill each other.
Yeah.
That's straight up the truth. Dom freaking hated Chris.
Nobody knows about the John Costello murder. Respond to you. Yeah. For better or worse, I know about 70 of these incidents with this crew. And one of them in particular, I had a conversation with somebody about your friend. Somebody, well, Pete LaFrosia, I could say his name. I actually had a conversation with him about that. And he said your friend was a nice guy. I will say that. He referred to him as John Boy. Johnny Bradfield. He referred to John Costello as John Boy. I don't know if you remember that nickname, but that's how he referred to him. And that's it. Did Dominic have a veteran's burial? Is he in a military cemetery? Well, he got cremated.
He got cremated in his ashes to go to a military place in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We need to get permission from the people that are still alive. What people would that be? Who's alive? And well, they're all in prison for life. Anyone?
It's
dead.
It's Freddie the Gnome. It's
dead.
He's dead. It's Roy. He's dead.
Dead.
It's Henry Borelli. It's Anthony Center. It's Joey Testa.
Gone for life.
Right. Who else is in that video?
I mean, Freddie was the one that filmed it, so obviously his.
Yeah. And let me tell you guys, just so you know, there's a lot of dead air where Freddie just set the camera up on the table, and you just hear like him goofing and laughing, and he had like a crazy cackle, and you hear Freddie cackling, and people tell him to turn off the camera, and then like 20 minutes will go by of nothing, and then he picks up the camera, and then he starts moving it around, and then you see some stuff, and then he puts it back down, and you know, there's stuff on it, don't get me wrong. Like they're goofing, they're making jokes, they're at a barbecue, they're smoking cigarettes and talking shit. You know, it's definitely being like at a barbecue with the DeMeo crew. So I could get why people are fascinated.
Right. Yeah. Whatever happened to Chris's girlfriend they live with in the Rockaways? Well, somebody reached out, Gumption, someone that's writing a book, Quentin. She's not interested in any of this stuff whatsoever. So that'll never happen. Somebody asked if he liked Anthony Center.
Did he like Anthony Center?
Yeah.
I mean, I think he felt like Anthony and Joey, like he, you know, he respected them for sure.
Okay.
He definitely respected Anthony, but you know, they were wild. He just said they were wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't wait for it to come out. Yeah, same here, man. I really want to see the video. Everybody wants this. Is the elusive. This is like the holy grail of mob. Fucking.
I know.
It's like getting Al Capone's voice on recording or something.
I know. I swear to God, holy cow.
I wonder if Dom at least got the pepper spray Chris in the car. I don't know.
No, I mean Chris got his after that.
Yeah,
you know?
He got his after that. Chris probably wanted to kill Dom. Well, they probably wanted to kill each other, right?
Oh, they definitely wanted to kill each other.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Ross, was Dom close to Henry? Well, yeah, you mentioned that before, right?
Yeah, no, that was it. That was his most. He was closest to Henry.
Yeah,
that was. You know, he fucking of all the people, he really felt the worst that Henry went away like that.
Yeah, and that video that Brian Sharp put up with Art Ruffles, they're talking about finding out that Henry is in like some medium security prison. And then Art Ruffles gets mad and he or something, and he contacts the prison and he's like, "Do you know who the hell this guy is? This guy's a serial murderer. You got him walking around with no walls." So like, "Oh, we didn't know that. We don't have anything on him." And Ruffles is like, "Well, I'm telling you, FBI agent, Art Ruffles, this and that." So I wonder, like, so he really, I mean, they really had it out for these guys, man. I mean, it was never going to fucking end.
Well, Henry, yeah, I mean, they kept dibs on them the whole time because Henry Borelli, it was like he had a lot of his cases were connected to the cars. You know what I'm saying? A lot of his stuff was connected to the cars, and there was like cases running in conjunction with each other. And I remember there was something that happened where he was trying to make a plea to get out, and they were a little nervous, like of how it was all going to go. I mean, all these guys are trying to appeal and do all kinds of shit. Like anybody locked up for life, you're trying to get out. So, but I don't know if Henry will ever succeed. But certainly, I know he's been trying.
Do you think Henry Borelli was the least dangerous?
I'm not at liberty to say, but I know Henry was a killer. And one thing Dominic told me about Henry, that he remembered his time when Henry whacked somebody. Dom was in the car on the way back from something, and Henry was playing classical music. Henry loved to play classical music. He drove a Mercedes, and Dom told me one night with Henry that something went down, and Henry turned on some like fucking Vivaldi or some shit after they just did, whatever they did, or he did what he did. And that was a story I do remember. But Henry was dangerous. I don't think like you can classify, like, you know what I mean? These guys,
they're all pretty dangerous.
Yeah, it's like saying, can an MLB, fucking guy hit a home run? Who hits
Right.
They all capable,
Pete and Dom. So I guess you talk about Pete LaFrosia. I'm sure they're around each other. When I was speaking to Pete on one of the clips that I put on YouTube, and me and Ross were talking about this before, Pete basically said, well, I read Pete the excerpt from Murder Machine, which is from Dom's feelings, and it's talking about him coming around to, I guess, still make some money or whatever, even though he didn't really enjoy being around the twins. And he mentions he didn't enjoy being around Pete LaFrosia or any of these guys, really. So I'm sure they talked. I'm sure they were around each other. Did he say anything in particular about Pete LaFrosia? They just didn't like him, or?
Not, to be honest with you, not really. Like he never talked about Pete that much, or like Eddie Rendini, or he like they were like guys that were like fringe guys. Like he told some funny stories about like fucking Vito Arena, right? And his boyfriend Joey Lee, a little Chinese dude, and like I'd hear little stories about people. Pete was good with the cars or whatever, but like the main guys that he spoke mostly about in the DeMeo crew was like the inner core, Roy, Chris, Henry, Joey, Anthony, you know what I mean? That those guys. I don't know the answer to that, Gumption. I don't know exactly the name of the bouncer. But I know that they had their run of the place, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ross, I don't know if you got to go or.
No, I mean, if you want to keep going for a little bit longer.
No, cool. Yeah, I mean, I want people to ask as many questions as they can,
Yeah.
And once again, DominickMontiglio.org. You can get the documentary there, and keep a lookout on YouTube. Keep paying attention to those clips that Brian Sharp is putting up, and then ultimately, like Ross said, he's going to start the YouTube channel. Yeah. Does Ben Whipple have Super 8 footage and pictures from Vietnam? Is that one of Dom's soldier buddies?
Yeah, Ben was in the war with Dom. He's in that picture with Dom and a bunch of guys that you showed earlier. And Ben did have some pictures that are in our documentary. You could see them in Lynchpin of Bensonhurst.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't think he had Super 8 footage, but he had pictures.
My final question to Jim is this: do you think they killed 200 people or just an exaggeration from the police?
Definitely.
Well, you were around Pergola a lot. I actually had dinner with Pergola a couple months ago.
No kidding.
Yeah. I got to meet him with Quentin Walker, but you were around him. I mean, that's what he believes, at least, right?
Oh, hell yeah. And I mean, I know from talking to Dominic, they killed a lot of people. You got to remember, no matter what, the cops don't get everyone, right? They don't get every murder that these guys did.
Right.
So you got to think of the murders that they got them for, and then times that by what? You know what I mean? But no, they said this was a crew of serial killers. You know?
Right.
So
why didn't Dom have the courage to get away from Nino's influence? Do you think it was courage or?
I just think that what happened was when Dominic came back from Berkeley and his wife was pregnant and he didn't really have a plan, it started slow. It was like, well, you need a job. I'll let you work at the car service. Then it was like, you know what? Why don't you just drive me around? I'll pay you a little money. It started slowly. And by the time Dom realized like where he was at with it, it was kind of too late. You didn't just like walk away from Nino.
Okay.
So, he did have the courage to get away from Nino. He went back out to California, but stupidly, he came back. So,
yeah,
that was his biggest mistake. But Nino was a very persuasive guy, very persuasive guy.
Did I don't know. Did he ever talk about Paul Barrio, those guys?
No.
Roy and them definitely did. That's a fact. But I don't know about, I don't know. Dom Ross would know about that. I don't know.
He never mentioned that. I mean, I know, he mentioned Sammy the Bull and John Gotti and some of those guys that he knew.
Yeah.
Sammy, he knew from the neighborhood. But no, he never, those guys, not Paul Vario.
You meant if they talked before Dom passed? Oh, you're talking about Pete again? No, I mean I know Pete from what he told me. He didn't like Dominic at all. So
nope. Because Pete was locked up while Dom. Pete only got out what?
Well, Pete did, as far as I know. I mean, Pete did 5 years with the DeMeo stuff because they could never tie him to like the 6 or whatever homicides that they tried to. He did 5 years ultimately, but then after that, I mean, I don't know. Pete's story's kind of, he was in and out of prison for a bunch of other shit over the years, and now he's not in prison. So I mean, but for that stuff, Pete, I mean, as far as I know, I think Pete only did like 5 or 6 years with that DeMeo stuff. So I mean, realistically, he's a lucky man. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Dubana kill Roy and the crew besides the Nino Horn to get back. So besides Vincent Governara, I don't know if Ross could even talk about that, but I don't
know. You're gonna have to tune in to our channel.
Yeah, I don't think
on the road.
Yeah,
and get answers for that.
Yep.
All
right. Pete knew Roy when I met Rosenberg. Yeah, that's what Pete says. I wonder if Pete would have ever talked to Dom. Oh, Henry would have ever talked to Dom.
No,
Probably
I mean,
not,
we
right?
tried. Like we tried to get, when we were doing this thing with Dominic, we tried to get these guys to talk to us because we wanted to be able to have them tell, their side of the story too.
Yeah.
It would be great to have a perspective from Henry or Joey or Anthony, somebody being like, whatever they felt about Dom, but nobody would participate on any level.
Wow.
And they won't talk to everybody's tried, as you know, Brett.
Yeah, this guy too is joining us now. Darkness Underneath, Quentin Walker.
Yeah.
Hey, he's definitely tried to reach out. Is it true that Gotti was scared of the DeMeo crew? Did Dominic ever talk about it? It's funny, actually, on that clip, Art Ruffles said they were basically scared of each other, which I never even thought about that they were probably just like mutual respect and fear of each other, maybe. Well, that's Art Ruffles, FBI said that. That was his opinion.
Yeah, if you watch Lynchpin of Bensonhurst, Dom literally says that there's a story that, that John Gotti was talking with Gene and or Gene or Pete Gotti and saying like, you know, they were like, we can't fuck with the DeMeo crew. Like they kill more people than than our whole crew was killed for breakfast. Like
Yeah.
we can't fuck with them at all. Like Dom said they were terrified of the DeMeo crew. In fact, they didn't move on Paul until they were all gone. So that should give you your answer. Yeah, like nobody had a crew of killers like these guys. That people had shooters and stuff like that, but they didn't have guys like this that were like murdering people and chopping them up, and like everybody knew these guys were like that treacherous. You were gonna disappear for real, like that.
Michael Francis said there wasn't to us. How could it possibly be true? Yeah, because when Michael Francis made that movie, made that comment on his video, he goes, "Who's giving these orders?" Well, that's the point. Nobody was giving them. There was no. I mean, I would be surprised. I don't know what the number is, but when I look at the homicides and all the suspected ones from Frank Pergola, I would be surprised if 40%, or I'd be surprised if 30% of those Cruz murders Paul Castellano knew about.
Not even that, Brett. You got to realize. You remember how they killed, all kinds of people that were just around. This one's girlfriend. This one was it. They killed all kinds of people like that.
Yeah.
See, Michael Francesi is referring to 200 gangsters.
Yeah, no, he's looking at it from like a gangster mentality, like this mafia code.
Right. No, these guys were just you crossed them, you were getting killed here, you were getting killed there. If they were in business, they were trying to do something. They were just killing people randomly. This wasn't like, oh, we're gangsters and we're doing that wasn't what they were doing. It wasn't about the code. They were just fucking whacking people left and right. Girls, right? Girlfriends.
Women. More than one woman. Probably at least 3 or 4.
Exactly. So that's why it's not hard to believe.
Teenagers. Anybody who got in the way of their car operation. I mean, you have like, what was it, like the guy Khalid Dowd they killed, and then his friend just showed up to him at the garage. I think it was Ronald Falcaro. They fucking chopped them both up. I mean, that happened. How many times do you think that happened? Probably so many times.
Yeah, Andre Katz murder. He wasn't a gangster.
Andre Katz. You have the one that Dom talks about where there was a kid, something happened with one of the barmaids at the Gemini, and Roy ends up shooting this kid in front of the Gemini in the car, right? He says, "Come, I'm just gonna smack him around or whatever." He called me a motherfucker or something.
Yeah.
Wasn't that a story that Dom said?
Well, look at the one I just told you. They were at a nightclub. Somebody talked to the girl. They put him in a stall and beat him to fucking half to death. And Dom said, when they walked away, he has no idea if the guy lived through that or not. That's how badly beaten he was.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's a story that Dom tells the Murder Machine. I think in one of those videos that Brian put up, it might have been the Art Ruffles, when he talks about something with a girl at the Gemini, and there was a guy that wanted to date her, and then she told Roy that, "Oh, that kid called you a motherfucker," and Roy said, "Oh, okay." And they go out into a car, and Dominic says he witnesses the whole thing, and he just kills him in the car, like he shoots him. So he also said Carlo Profeta was there, who's a guy who's free today.
Yeah, Carlo Profeta, that's right.
Yeah, he said that he was there watching that go down also. Crazy. Ross, when you have a chance, I want to talk to you. Oh, that's Quentin again.
Yeah, definitely. We'll talk soon, Quentin. I know that you've been wanting to chat with me, and I just, like I was telling Brett in the beginning, I'm working on films. I got a lot of stuff going on, and I haven't been able to like nail down a time. But I've been in touch with Frank and Brett, and I will definitely be in touch with you as well. So sorry for the delay.
2 guys hanging in the bathtub, of course. That's a famous story from Dom.
That's in the movie.
Vito Arena also has a similar story like that. They shot Sherry Golden. Yeah, 19-year-old girl. Yeah, they shot her.
Oh, Sherry Gold, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can do that, what else are you capable of,
Yeah. And that was like on a whim. Like she just showed up with John Quinn. Oh, you brought his girlfriend. Oh, what a shame. I guess the 19-year-old's got to go too. I mean, you're talking about diabolical, human beings. We spoke about this before, Gennaro. There's, I don't know.
Yeah, to be honest with you, you know, the drawings are much more. I'm willing to part with much more than I am the paintings, because I just can't put a price tag on something like that because they're kind of invaluable now to me, or just in general because there's so few of them. But if you were interested in a drawing, you could reach out to me and send me an email at rossbrodar@hotmail.com, and I'll talk to you about it.
All right, there you go, guys. rossbrodar@hotmail.com. I really hope it will. So there is one coming out that should be out soon called Gemini Lounge, the movie. When I saw the plot for the movie and I saw some of the information there, it's a joke. I can tell it's a joke already.
Right? I saw that too. It didn't seem. What the fuck is that?
One of these trailers that they came out with was pretty laughable. There's guys that are alive still. There's some guys that were around back then that knew some of these guys, and I know that they weren't approached or talked to. I know they didn't speak to any law enforcement sources for the movie, and I know they just made up a fake plot line for this film, and we all know that the truth is stranger than fiction, right? So
Yeah, and if you see Lynchpin of Bensonhurst, put those comments in there that you want to see the movie made a feature film, because we're working on that too, and we're trying to get producers to understand the amount of people that would want to see this as a feature or a series. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, 100%, guys. Please, like I said, yeah, comment if you guys want to see that, and of course, whenever Ross does that channel, I'm definitely gonna plug it. This is a story that gets bigger and bigger all the time. I mean, it's a story that was bigger than it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It's coming back around. There's a lot of people on YouTube who have a great interest in this stuff and a great interest in you, Ross, of course, because anybody that was connected to anybody that was affiliated with that crew that has anything to talk about, there is a lot of people that want to know about it. So Stacy said she saw Lynchpin, good documentary. So thanks, Stacy, for seeing that. They need to make an actual movie about Dom. Yeah, hopefully Ross is the one that's going to be a part of that. I mean, who better? But probably much better than I do what goes on in that industry in Ross, so I don't.
Yeah, I mean, again, Lynchpin has been out for 1 year, so we have a 3-year deal with Xenon Pictures, and hopefully by the end of our 3 years, we'll have enough data to show how many people have watched it, how many people are interested in it, the comments, and all of that, and then we could go to a producer or a bigger streaming entity like Netflix or Amazon and say, hey guys, look, this is how many people are interested in this, and try to get the money to make a movie. And with all the hundreds of hours we have of Dom telling stories, if we, to us, it's a no-brainer. We get a writer, we show him the footage, and we could have a great film. No doubt.
Yeah, I agree, man.
Yeah, and his film would be. I've always looked at it like if you can make Goodfellas about Henry Hill, who was, as Dominic said, a glorified fucking coffee boy, and then you got Donnie Brasco, who was legit, but like that genre, Dom's film would fit right in with that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was Quentin that said this once. I mean, you got Goodfellas, but that crew, this story is essentially the anti-Goodfellas when you think about it. It's basically pure fucking, as far as I could tell. I mean, it's pure fucking darkness. I mean, I'm sure they were living the high life, but man, it's pretty dark if you ask me. But
oh, no doubt about it. No, it would make fucking Goodfellas look like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood,
Yeah. Doesn't DeMeo have to be the focus of the story, though? I don't think so. I mean,
no.
He could be like the Jimmy Burke or maybe the Paul Vario of the movie. I mean, because Goodfellas is essentially about Henry Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, then you have these main characters around him.
I've always looked at it like Shakespeare, right? Where it's like you've got this character that is raised by the uncle who kicks the father out of the family to be the heir apparent to his evil empire, only to be overthrown right, and end up dying in prison. And this other character becomes disillusioned, and all that happens within that. It's a very sort of Shakespearean thing that happened between Dominic and Nino, because Nino, all the while, thought he was, he had this like, under the wing family member, right? That was going to be doing his bidding. And Dominic's the one that took him down eventually.
Yeah.
So that's like the crux of it. And then everything happens around it, because let's face it, Dominic would have never been with the DeMeo crew and doing what he did in that position if it wasn't for Nino. And Roy was just an offshoot of Nino's world, really. You know what I mean? Because Nino is what gave Roy his juice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that one of the problems also is it's like, it's hard to tell. Like, I don't think a Hollywood producer can just like pick up Murder Machine and be like, oh, I'm basing my movie on this book without like having to deal with Jerry Capisi or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't.
Yeah,
like,
but I've even spoken to those guys. The thing about Murder Machine is, not for nothing, it's a great book, but it's this big in terms of the story, right? It's only, all they did was, the story is this big as compared to like, I see Dominic's story stretching to after he gets into witness protection, around the country under different aliases, right?
Yeah.
Wandering like a lost soul, losing his family. Like, nobody's done that stuff in a movie. And then, and then he ends up like, a beaten down war vet, ex-gangster making paintings. If it was me, I would start the movie with him in his studio making these images, and then I'd go into each image. And as you go into the image, then I would tell a story through it.
That's pretty cool.
I've already kind of imagined it that way, because if you just tell it from like, the point of him growing up to witness protection and that's it, well, we've heard that story a gazillion fucking times.
Right.
It's like, who did the man become after that too? How did he deal with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like that a lot, actually. Yeah. So it's like I was showing before, guys, I was showing like these paintings, like especially like these patchworks, like you mean like something like that, right? You zoom into like
exactly. Like, let's say you zoom into the gangster, and then all of a sudden, you'd hear, just like you did in kind of Goodfellas, when I was growing up, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
But again, you pull back, and then there's a Vietnam one, and then you pull back, and then there's, he put a lot of these piano players in his imagery. That was always like, sort of the foretelling of what's coming type of thing,
Yeah, I think I found one hiding in one of these paintings once. I don't know which one. I don't know what painting it was. It might have been this one.
They're all there. A lot of the symbols you'll find repeated.
Yeah.
He had his own symbolism. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to head out of here soon, guys. Let's get a couple more questions in for Ross. Let's see what we got. I hope everyone has been enjoying this. Right now, we got 75 people. This movie needs to be made. Yeah, I agree. And it needs to be with people who were close to the situation, that knew these people, or someone that spent a lot of time at least being genuine and looking into the story. Somebody who has talked to the detectives, talked to the FBI agents, that talked to people that were involved with the crew. Somebody like Ross or somebody like Quentin, who has also talked to FBI, who's talked to, Pete LaFrosia and other people. So it's like, you need to like speak to people that were involved in the situation, not just fucking make it up. And just that trailer that I saw from that Gemini movie, it was kind of cringe, man. I was watching it and I was like, what the fuck is this, man?
Yeah.
Ross, you sell copies of Montiglio or your own? Do you sell so of the artwork, yours and Dominic's? Do you sell yours as well?
Copies of it? No, I
That's what you should do, Ross. You should sell prints. I mean, I think that would be awesome.
It's not a bad idea.
I would fucking believe me, I would put a print of any one of those paintings on my wall. That's just me, but
great idea. I haven't gone that far. I mean, Dom only died a few years ago.
Oh yeah.
And I haven't thought about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not a bad idea.
But I think posters. He said posters. It's screaming for a mini series at least. A movie is not going to be big enough. Yeah, Netflix,
Agreed.
5-10 part series.
Agreed.
a Netflix thing,
I
something
mean,
like
if they
that.
can do Gravesend, forget about it. Like, you know,
It would be great if someone could put together an art show retrospective of Dom's work. That would be very cool too. The one side I have is very haunting, a portrait of someone very abstract, and yes, it has numbers, letters, and symbols. I wonder if any are war related. Oh yeah, Vinny bought a painting, right?
yeah, he did. He bought a beautiful piece, and Dom often put cryptic messages in his pieces, and yeah. Thanks, Richard. Appreciate it, man.
Prince would be great.
Guys, you know, I'm taking this. I'm hearing it, and Brett,
Yeah.
you know, if I do a series of prints, I'll do a run, and maybe we'll do this again, and you know, people can call in,
Yeah.
and figure it out.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would like to see you like do this. Like even on your channel, like you and Brian just popping up. Hey, what's up, guys? You know, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything, but
No, it's all
no, I
good.
think that people want to know, man. They want to hear from you.
Yeah,
And you know, I hope that this is definitely gonna a DeMeo movie done right. I stress done right would blow Goodfellas out the park. The story is just so many times more interesting.
100%.
Yeah, and the real Goodfellas story is more interesting than the movie as well. So, yeah. Good night. Good night, Waleed Atia. Good night. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate that. Thank you, Kathy, and thank you so much for the email you sent me. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Good night, Waleed.
All right. Well, looks like we're wrapping it up, Brett.
Yeah, it looks like it. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed this live. Ross, I hope you had a good time. Right now, we got 76 in here.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on. And it was great to hear from everybody and see their comments and stuff. Again, Lynchpin of Bensonhurst.
Thank
You can
you.
find it anywhere. And my email, which is rossbrodar@hotmail.com. Get in touch with me if you'd like. Wow. Boom. Yeah, no doubt. I'm going to work on
Vinnie
that.
Boombot said you can make a prints of the ones that he already purchased. That would be cool. Yeah, so everybody, man. I mean, it looks like you're going to have, if you come on, you guys have that channel. Looks like you're going to definitely have people watching.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, you're definitely going to have people interested in the art. I got all this crap on my wall. I definitely got room for it.
You got it. We're going to work that out.
This was great. All right, everybody. Thank you. Ross, if you just like stay there for a minute, don't sign out. I just want to talk to you behind.
You got it.
Big Monty, thank you so much. Richard. All right, everybody. Have a good weekend. I'm working on some stuff. Hopefully next week I'll have some good stuff out. Everybody enjoy. And listen, DominickMontiglio.org. Check it out. Go there. Go on YouTube. Look at the Dominic Montiglio clips that were put up recently. I'm going to link them to this video, actually, those channels. Red Raven, thank you so much. Australia. I forgot you were in Australia. Wow. We got people everywhere. Thank you, Red Raven. I forgot because I know you said you were in Brooklyn at one point, I believe. Good night. Frankie, thank you so much. My man Rod, thank you. James is in the UK. A lot of people overseas, Ross. That's why I wanted to do this at least like 6:30.
Yeah.
It's probably like almost 2 a.m. where these people are at right now.
Wow.
Thank you, Roro. You're the best. God bless you too, Frankie. All right, everybody. I'll see you soon. Everybody have a good night. Thank you, Vinnie Boombots.